Right, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can we have a thumbs up or a acknowledgement? Anything? Yeah? Can we hear me? Can we have a thumbs up? Cool, brilliant. There we go. Right, so thanks for joining me. It's nice to see that we've got a few people on here. That's great to see. We're going to just do a bit of a seminar and a bit of a meeting on metabolic syndrome, diabetes, how we can prevent, manage, and even sometimes work to reverse it. I've broken it down into a few easy sections to make it more understandable. So what is metabolic syndrome? What is diabetes and insulin resistance? Nutrition, exercise, and then what we'll do is we'll open up for a bit of Q&A just at the end. So might be a bit prudent to who I am. Well, I'm proud to say that that's me on the right hand side now as opposed to on left. Well, just a bit of brief about me and who I am. Well, my name is Peter Allison. I spent many years working in the construction industry as a company director of an electrical contracting company, which consequently exacerbated me already increasing waistline, lots of overnight stays in hotels, late night takeaways, service station meals. At my heaviest in 2015, I was weighing in at just under 25 stone. Through lifestyle changes, exercise, and long-term nutritional changes, I've got it down to around 12.5 stone. Tend to hover around that now, and I'm literally half the man I used to be, thankfully. My weight loss journey saw me take on a new perspective in life. And the obvious question from people was, well, how did you do it? How did you manage to lose that amount of weight? So I realised, well, if I was going to be this giver of information and help others out, I should at least concrete it with some guidance, with some further knowledge, and subsequently I qualified as a personal trainer. I've gone on to further qualifying boxer size, level 4 advanced SMT, level 4 trained in obesity and diabetes, and certified nutrition coach. In 2019, I went on to set up Active Studio with a clear goal to help individuals who fall outside the scope of a normal gym environment. Now, what I mean by that is the scope of a normal gym environment is when I was 25 stone, nothing was more daunting to me than walking into a gym, which is ridiculous because we're there to try and help ourselves better as lives, and yet it's that stigma and stereotype that goes along with it. So I just started off from a bedroom and I went from there. So like I said, we're going to go through metabolic syndrome and diabetes. There's a few little glyphs on there. So what we might typically see, signs and symptoms of those illnesses: obesity, heart disease, liver disease, hypertension, or blood pressure as we know it, gastrointestinal problems, that could be IBS, inflammation, cancers, dementia, and raised blood lipids or high cholesterol. So we'll touch on what is metabolic syndrome. Well, most common metabolic syndrome is characterized by having at least 3 of the following conditions: abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, high triglycerides, or high blood sugar. Now, there's a little diagram just there on the left-hand side, because a lot of people tend not to understand what's meant by the term of abdominal obesity. And we refer to it as apple and pears in the simplest form. Now, a lot of women get really worked up about having weight on the hips and the thighs. And the reality is that's how women are designed. That's what genetics says. Typically, women are going to be predisposed to store fat in those places. That's what hormones are there for. It's for pregnancy. It's to keep you alive and the baby alive should you be fortunate enough to become pregnant. People, or women specifically, aim to just get rid of it, and it's, for the most part, you're not gonna. That's how you're designed, and it's also not dangerous. That's not a problem. The problem is when you see the apple one on the left-hand side. It's a typical sign of abdominal obesity, which is accumulation of what we call visceral fat. So it's fat above, within the organs and around, an accumulation around the organs, which leads on to other conditions, which is your insulin resistance, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It is important to treat these conditions so they don't cause significant health problems down the road. In addition to upping your risk of diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome doubles your risk of cardiovascular disease and increases the risk of death from any other cause by 1.5 times. So it is important to take it immensely serious. So just want to open it up for a bit of recap. If anyone wants to speak out or stick it in chat box, if they can answer out, what are the 5 conditions that can characterize metabolic syndrome? And how many of the conditions do you need for a diagnosis of metabolic syndrome? Anybody? No? We've got a quiet bunch. Right, so just to highlight over them. So it's obviously abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, high triglycerides, high blood sugar, and you need at least 3 of them for a diagnosis of metabolic syndrome. So diabetes. Well, diabetes is a condition that causes high levels of glucose, which is a form of sugar. So when we have normal table sugar, it's actually made up of 2 molecules, 1 glucose, 1 fructose. Now, what I'm not saying is that we should avoid all glucose because we need glucose. It's the energy source of the body. It's what the cells function on. And that's what we need to have in a diet. It's just a matter of how much of it and in what form we get it. Because of a problem with a hormone called insulin, your pancreas produces, insulin moves from your bloodstream and into the cells of your body for energy. If your body don't make enough insulin or it can't use the insulin efficiently that it makes, glucose will stay in the bloodstream and it can't move across into your cells to give them the energy to work properly. That buildup can lead to damage of tissues, including vessels and nerves, leading to organ damage and the kidneys of the eyes. I want to touch on what the prevalence of diabetes in the UK and just show how serious it's become. There are 3.9 million people living with diabetes in the UK that are diagnosed. And the reason I put diagnosed on there is because so many people have diabetes and don't become aware of it until they start suffering with the other signs and symptoms of it, which is really quite daunting. It's only typically picked up once you've started to develop the issues, which is why an active lifestyle before it helps. Around 700 people a day are diagnosed with diabetes. That's equivalent to 1 person every 2 minutes. Since 1996, the number of people with diabetes in the UK has more than doubled from 1.4 to 3.3 million. And it's only estimated that by 2025, it's going to go to 5 million people. So to try and keep all this simple, we're going to go, what now is insulin resistance? Well, insulin resistance is a condition in which your body cannot use in the right way the insulin that it produces or makes. So when you eat your food, most of that you eat, typically from carbohydrates, gets broken down into the glucose. The glucose travels in your blood to all your body's cells, and that's what gives you the energy. So insulin has the important job of helping sugar move from your blood into your body cells. So if you just look at that little diagram just in the middle there, the little cubes are dictating the glucose molecules, then you got the insulin, and then you got the cell. The way to think of it is insulin is like a key working on the lock of the cell. Insulin opens the door, unlocks the door to let the glucose into the cells. The problem is with insulin resistance, the cells stop responding efficiently to letting the insulin function. Therefore, the glucose can't get from the bloodstream into the cells. So you just end up with an elevated glucose or hyperglycemia. When you have insulin resistance, the body cells block the insulin, so it can't do its job. You're going to get the energy you need because you can't get the energy you need because it's just swimming around in your blood vessels. So the main cause of insulin resistance are too much body fat, just simply being overweight, and especially around, again, like we discussed, that waistline and not being physically active. We'll go into a bit more detail about what we can do, but some basic premise of it is losing weight and eating healthy foods in the right amounts. Just losing as little as 7% of your body weight is a good goal for many, and it can usually work to start the reversing process, and being physically active for 30 minutes or more a day. In some cases, if your if your diabetes has progressed, you might need medical management of that. Now, there's no uniform treatment strategy for metabolic syndrome or diabetes. There's not one tablet that you can take to fix all your problems, so your high blood pressure or your diabetes or your high cholesterol. It usually ends up being the result of having to take many medications to resolve or treat. So you might have to take insulin sensitizers. So that could be metformin or insulin to bring down your blood glucose or control how much it secretes or increase your insulin sensitivity. You might have to take various amounts of blood pressure or cholesterol medications. I have put on their weight loss drugs, although I'd like to see that GPs aren't randomly just giving that out. It's typically a very last resort, because we want to create a long-term lifestyle change to help people as opposed to just medicating it. So how can we improve our insulin resistance? Well, the best way is to balance your blood sugar. This is the key. It's to control the amount of sugar that goes in. More sugar in just elevates, and it will only exacerbate the problem of that insulin resistance. Gentle exercise, reducing your stress. Now, this is absolute key, and it's one of the areas that is often overlooked. I see you laughing there, Lindsay, because it's something that we're all guilty of. We all get stressed out, and that. And the problem is we have a hormone, cortisol, and it's a fat driver. It just does nothing but create a fat storing mechanism, and stress. It's severely overlooked. Along with the other one is getting more sleep. Typically we say 8 hours. Now that don't mean go to bed, play on your phone for 2 hours and then get 6 hours sleep. It means try and get a good solid 8 hours sleep if you can. So can we have a bit of a recap then? So which type of sugar accumulates in the blood vessels, and what ways can we improve our insulin resistance?
Glucose.
Yeah, glucose. And the way we can improve it is to limit our sugar intake, exercise, sleep, and stress reduction. Obviously, that list isn't exhaustive. It's just a bit of a general idea. Now, the dreaded belly fat, how can we reduce it? Again, it all comes back, reduce your sugar intake, consuming healthy fats. Now, one thing that I'll point out is fat is not the enemy. We need fat in this diet because fat, as body's made up of fat, as cells, as brain, we need fat to function through daily life. The way that I tend to look at it is if you had at room temperature, if you have what we deem as a fat and it's oil consistency, so olive oil, for example, they tend to be the better things. If it's solid, like a block of lard or a lump of butter at room temperature, it's probably not so great for you. So it's just a little key way of picking up on it. Now, I'm not the hater of carbs, but for somebody that's pre-diabetic or diabetic, reducing your white carbohydrate intake is generally a real good idea because it's a higher glucose and starchy content, which leads to elevate and escalate your glucose again. We want to be looking at higher fiber foods, which are slower releasing carbohydrates. Massively overlooked is water intake. 2 to 3 litres is ideal. Most people struggle with it. Set little reminders on your phone and alarm for every hour or two just to beat off, drink a glass of water. Again, water is something that will help with flushing out your system. It's helps all the metabolism system burn efficiently. So you're actually burning more. You can actually burn fat through drinking water. Again, we've already touched on it, managing the stress, which will reduce that cortisol, increasing your green leafy veggies. It don't have to be just restricted to green leafy veggies, but any sort of high fiber vegetables, great. Overlooked protein. People tend to ramp up on the carbohydrates on a plate and forget about protein. Protein is the building blocks of the human body. Lean protein, so your chicken, your turkeys, you can get good quality cheap mince now, 5% reduced fat, stuff like that, where you're just reducing down on the fat content but getting the protein in. simple, move your body. Little tips for the water, fresh lemon in water. And then just love the body you have whilst you work towards the body you want. Nothing's born in a day, and that's it. You have to just take your time and be grateful for what you've got right now and work towards the goals that you want. So the problem with sugar is it's an addictive substance. In fact, sugar works on the same receptors in the brain as opioid drugs. So your heroines and your cocaines and all the rest of it. It has the same effect. And the problem with it is you don't actually realize that you're having it when you're having massive amounts of it. So it's a bit of a gimmick, is this really, but just something I thought might relate to a lot of people. So how do we know we're having too much sugar? Is donuts. Every time you eat something sweet, your body just craves for more and you don't realize it. Is that a muffin top? Sugar impacts the way your body stores fat. So again, it goes back to that visceral fat storage around the central obesity. Your feet hurts. Sugar is linked to inflammation of the body. You've got wrinkles. You might be young and have wrinkles. Sugar affects the quality of the collagen and the elastin, which is the fibers of the skin tissue. It affects how elastic and tight that skin is. Obvious one, we've all told as kids at some point, toothache gives you tooth decay and cavities. And if your tummy hurts, sugar's hard to digest. It causes gas and it can also cause the runs. So if you're sort of thinking to yourself now, I might have one or two of them, then there might be signs that you're probably having too much sugar in your diet and you just don't realize it. It's a crafty old thing, is sugar. It's in absolutely everything. And sometimes that's not your fault. It's the manufacturers of food. So what can we do? What's sort of the best diet for metabolic syndrome? So like I said, important fact, fat does not make you fat. Actually, it's sugar that makes you fat. That's what increases the blood lipids, so the fat within the blood, and triggers what we call triglycerides, which is the fat storage through insulin production. So those with metabolic syndrome can lower the risk with any diet that promotes weight loss. Though certain diets have been shown to be especially helpful. So some of them are Mediterranean diets, which emphasizes more on fruits and veg, whole grains, lean proteins, and the healthy fats. So that's your fish, your avocado, your olive oils. You can go low carb, so reducing your refined carbohydrate intake. You could go vegetarian. Some people take the intermittent fasting approach. Now, I'm not advocating that one diet is suitable for any one person, because each person has their own unique needs. You might have intolerances, allergies. You just might not like a certain food group. So you need to find a diet that works for you, but it always needs to be done with the help of a professional, someone that's qualified to make these decisions, especially if you are already diabetic, because changing your diet rapidly or going into exercise rapidly can be potentially quite dangerous. So the help and assistance of somebody qualified. So metabolic syndrome diet overview. So foods to take is your vegetables, your whole grains, your fruits, and your legumes. Foods to avoid: artificial sweeteners. Now I put that on there and people go, well, artificial sweetener is not a sugar, it's artificial. Artificial sweetener is actually derived from sugar. It's a refined process. It comes from sugar. And the unfortunate thing is your body doesn't actually realize there's a difference between sugar and artificial sweetener. It will still respond in exactly the same way, and it'll still send out all those little insulin soldiers. So you end up with all this, just increasing your insulin resistance still. Again, Diet Coke, for the same reason. It's sugar-free, but it's full of artificial sweeteners. At no point am I saying don't have a drink, don't have artificial. I'd rather you have an artificial sweetener as opposed to sugar. I prefer you drinking Diet Coke as opposed to original. We just have to be mindful about the quantity of what you're intaking. Trans fats, so that's your pretty much, if it's processed, it's a hydrogenated fat, which is in most processed foods. And the big one is obviously alcohol. It affects the way that the liver functions, which is exactly the same way that sugar impacts upon the liver as well. to give you fatty liver disease. Just some ideas for those with diabetes for drinks. So just water, plain, infused, carbonated, tea, black, green, white, coffee, vegetable juice, fruit juice, although keep your fruit juices minimal where you can, because you've broken down all the fibers. So just be careful. A serving once in a while won't be the end of the world. Just be careful about intake. And milk, low fat, non-fat, where you can. So to touch on, I've sort of been like the hater of carbohydrates, but I'm not, honest. So what are some of the best carbohydrates for diabetes? Well, your vegetables that grow above ground, such as green leafy veg, broccoli, cauliflower, cucumber, tomatoes, eat those in abundance. They're low calorie, they tend to have a lot of water content, massively high in fiber, so they help with gut, they prevent foods that are high in fiber that aren't just there for, as we all presume, to make us help us go to the toilet. They're also useful in, they carry out a lot of the fat that's within us intestines as well. So actually you can sort of ingest more fat and take it back out again, because that's what it's there for. It also is proven that it reduces the chances of colon and bowel cancer. Other vegetables is, in moderation, is your carrots, your beets, pumpkins, celeriac, and turnips. Slightly higher sugar content in them, more so when they've been cooked down, because to release the sugar's a bit easier. In terms of fruit, berries, strawberries, and blueberries, about half a cup serving per day. Beans and legumes, lentils, mung beans, northern beans, 6-7 grams carbs per quarter cup. So just eat those in moderation, but again, try and get them the nutritiously packed grains. Try and avoid, especially and starches, food. So sounds. I don't want to negate all food groups the same, but if it's white, I'd avoid it. So white pasta, white rice, white potatoes, parsnips. If it's white, it typically means that it's got a high glucose content, or it'll be released very quickly, which will only work to elevate your blood glucose sugars quite extremely. So some of the best high fiber foods. So if you want to have a look through that list, see there, broccoli. Broccoli's always going to be top of the list. It's cracking. It's got many health benefits. Avocado, again, avocado is high calorie, but it's packed full of nutrients, and it's the healthy oils. You can see going down black beans, chia seeds, raspberries, rolled oats, sweet potato. So again, it's not that you can't have potatoes, it's just trying to avoid the white potato. Get sweet potato. It's got a higher fiber content, so it's slow releasing of those glucose. So you can sort of see on there, looking at it, the key that I like to say to a lot of people is eat the rainbow. So try and have a lot of different colours on your plate. You're getting all the benefits of everything, then you're getting the nutrients, the vitamins, and the minerals that you need. So don't, if you have a plate and it just looks white, so white rice and potatoes and whatever else you've got with it, you're not getting a right good variety there. So try and mix it up and get a good colour on your plate. So just a bit of a recap on your nutrition then. So what kind of nutrient should be reduced or eliminated from a diabetic's diet? And which nutrient you want to increase?
Potatoes and white rice at moment, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it's carbohydrates, specifically your refined carbohydrates. And you want to increase your high fiber foods in your protein and reducing your unsaturated fats. Increase your unsaturated fats and increasing your omega-rich foods, especially stuff like salmon. If you can get oil efficient in your diet, that's really important because it's got so many health benefits, because it's an anti-inflammatory food. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the processed foods that we eat is rich in omega-6, which is anti-inflammatory. It's really quite naff for you. the problem is omega-3, which balances it out, which is really good for you. Tends to come from harder food sources to get his hands on. So if you can have 1 to 2 portions of oily fish per week, that'd be really helpful for your overall general health. So then 8 tips to ramp up your metabolism. Now, these aren't hard and proven for the most part, but they're a good key to helping with a good lifestyle. Now, we're all aware of, like, on the right hand side, making movement hard and it's cardiovascular work, but the one thing that's often overlooked is strength training, which I'm going to look on a little bit in a few more slides. But twice a week, we want to be looking at doing some strength training. Again, that's 7 to 9 hours, on average 8 hours sleep per night. Protein, make movement hard. Use the stairs. So you've got the escalators, or you've got the lift, and you've got the stairs. Take the stairs. It's an easy, cheap, free resource for exercising. If you can bike or cycle somewhere, do that. If you're going to park your car a little bit further away. Drink Evan's Nectar, coffee. Not late at night, not late afternoon. But yeah, coffee is, you see, it's not great for you right now though, Lindsay.
No.
But yeah, I mean, coffee is great because it does boost your metabolism. It's full of antioxidants, so it is a great source. But again, just be careful about what you're consuming that way. Are you having it with sugar? Are you having cream in it, etc.? Stay hydrated, cold water. Go for a daily brisk walk. And then if you can, unfortunately, we're all at a point now where a lot of us with COVID, we've had to work from home. So rather than sitting down, stand up. If you can get a standing desk, or just try and go for stand up every 15, 30 minutes, go for a bit of a pace up and down your corridor. For those, I don't know if there's anyone here that's working from home, but if you are, where are you working from? Are you working from your kitchen table? Do you spend a lot of time in your kitchen when you're at home? If that's the case, try and choose the living room, because the problem is if you're in the kitchen, you're more inclined to be driven towards snacking because you've got access to your fridge easily. So I'll come back to the slide that I was mentioning, which is better cardio versus strength training. Now, we all feel that we need to be doing massive amounts of cardio work, running miles and miles and miles and all the rest of it. And really what we need to be doing is a blended mix between cardio and strength training. Believe it or not, from what I've seen and the research that I've read into, is strength training actually has more benefits for somebody who's got diabetes, for the insulin resistance, is strength training, which I'll get onto a little bit later on. Cardio is like it sounds, that's great for the heart, so that's going to help with your high blood pressure, general heart conditioning, helping those vessels. It's not to be ignored. But it doesn't have to be an all-out strenuous exercise. And then your strength training, like we've looked at before, is a couple of sessions per week. So what are the guidelines around exercise? So 19 to 64-year-olds, adults should do some type of physical activity every day. Any type of activity is good activity, but it's just the more you do, the better. So adults should be aiming to be physically active every day. Any activity is better than none, and more is better still. Do strengthening activities that work all the major muscles, so the legs, the hips, the back, abdomen, chest, shoulders, arms, on at least 2 days per week. The guidelines is 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity a week. Now, that doesn't mean that you've got to do it all in one go or 30 minutes. If you're doing the 150 minutes of moderate, that doesn't mean that you have to do the 30 minutes per day. In one go, you might do a 10-minute in morning, 10-minute at dinner time, 10-minute after tea. It's a guideline. It's not a hard and fast fixed rule. So reduce the time spent sitting or lying down and break up long periods of not moving some activity. You can achieve your weekly target with several short sessions of vigorous intensity activity or a mix of the moderate, the vigorous or very vigorous. Again, it's not hard, it's not fixed. Make sure the type and intensity of your activity is appropriate for your level of fitness. So don't just go into doing something. If you've been sat on a couch for the last 5 years, don't think that you're going to go be able to run a 10k race tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's dangerous. You're not going to cause injury to yourself. So just take it slow and progressive. Any progress is better than no progress. So again, these guidelines are also suitable for anybody, disabled adults and pregnant women and new mothers. So it's anybody 19 to 64 years old. So lifting weights may make managing type 2 diabetes easier. So how? Burns up blood sugar. Really simply put, is your muscles need glucose to function. Now, they might be insulin resistant through certain transponders in the cells that stop the insulin from functioning properly. But when you exercise through strength training, they find alternate ways through passive diffusion to let the glucose travel from the blood into the muscles. So you actually burn up a heck of a lot more glucose by strength training as opposed to cardio training. It spurs on massive amounts of weight loss, because what's happening with muscle requires more energy to burn than burning off the fat does originally. So adding, you hear this there's the old adage, muscle weighs more than fat. It doesn't. Muscle weighs the same. If you've got a pound of fat and a pound of muscle, it's exactly the same. It's just that that pound of muscle is denser and it requires more energy to keep it functional. It also targets the harmful belly fat that we'll talk around, that visceral fat. Now, fortunately, when we're losing weight in the first instance, the first place that typically you will lose any kind of fat is from that mid region, which is great because that's where we want to get rid of from. We're not really so bothered if we're still holding a bit of weight around the arms or the thighs or the legs or in buttocks. That's irrelevant. The key area to get rid of for the health effects is the belly fat, and that's typically what's targeted first. Strength training also improves the glucose storage, so your muscles can actually store more glucose. So if it's in your muscles, that's great, because it means it's not in your bloodstream anymore, which is causing all the health effects. It's not clogging up the vessels of your eyes and your kidneys, damaging your liver. So if we can get it in a muscle, great. Strength training. Oh, go back. No, go back. Strength training helps protect against diabetes complications. So we also have complications that go along with diabetes. So again, it improves the heart health. Think about it. Cardio is also strength training, or strength training is also cardio, because if you're lifting weights, it's using your heart. You need an extra blood to circulate to your muscles. Therefore, you're exercising it all. So you don't need to be concentrating exclusively on just strength on the cardio workout. It boosts bone density. It'll, again, because you're stimulating that blood flow, you're bringing in fresh nutrients and minerals to your bones. You're actually strengthening your bones, which in later life will prevent osteoporosis or the onset osteopenia. Moving on to that, it also prevents age-related muscle loss, which is sarcopenia. And it also goes on, like I discussed before, it reduces the risk of peripheral neuropathy and vision loss. So the eyes tend to be one of the first things to get affected when you get vessel damage as a diabetic. And it's basically because all that glucose is sticking and clogging up the tiny, tiny little capillaries and vessels of your body. So that might typically be seen in the feet and in the eyes. So just a bit of a recap on the exercise then. So how many minutes of physical activity should be done each week? On how many days a week should strength training be done? And what ways can we ramp up metabolic system? Anybody?
It's 150 minutes for the exercise.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it's 150 minutes of moderate activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity 2 days a week. And then ways to ramp up that system is the 7 to 9 average in 8 hours sleep, coffee in moderation, I might add, increase your protein intake, stay hydrated with 2.5 to 3 litres of water per day, and then incorporate physical activity into your day. So just a bit of an FYI, to be fair, it's a disclaimer from my part. So before starting any new exercise or nutritional program, seek the advice of a medical expert or GP, especially those who are already diabetic, as sudden changes to a diet or exercise regime can be dangerous and should be supervised and managed. So I'll open it up to any Q&As if anybody's got any. You can type it out or you can speak up. Don't be shy. Come on, let's have some questions, please.
What size of the weights is the best to start off exercising with?
Really good question. I'm glad you've asked that, because you don't actually need weights to start.
Yeah.
It's a common misconception that we need to be weightlifting. Strength training and weightlifting are two separate things. Your strength training at the moment can come from your own body, just doing body weight exercises. So squats, your lunges, push-ups, pull-ups, and when we say push-ups, look for the easier option. It doesn't have to come from. I know you've done box size.
Yeah, I love that.
And hopefully we're back at that soon. And it doesn't have to be all about the burpees and the vicious squats and stuff like that and ab crunches. If you can't manage to do a push-up from floor, or you can't manage a box squat from your knees, do it off of a wall. Just lean against the wall. Starting off progressive. You start off with your body. Don't think that you've got to jump into doing everything too soon. Don't feel as though you need to be off running marathons around your block to be losing weight. The biggest thing to concentrate on as a diabetic or someone who's in that pre-diabetic state or with metabolic syndrome is your diet. Change your diet and you'll probably find that everything falls into place anyway. Because like I said, a lot of processed foods are rich in the really crappy stuff that don't make you feel great. It's going to elevate your blood sugars. Now, what happens is eventually the insulin will start taking effect and you'll have a crash. Your blood sugars will drop right back down again and you'll feel lousy. You won't want to do anything. Processed foods are rich in the omega-6s, which are anti-inflammatory. They make you feel really crappy. They dry out all the cells of your brain and all your cells. You're not going to feel infused to do anything if you're not eating the right foods. So change your diet in the correct way. Don't try and change it. It's a very long process. Don't try thinking that you're going to do everything in one go. Don't go on stupid, crazy diets, thinking, right, I need to cut everything out. I'm not going to eat this and I'm not going to eat that, because what will happen is after a week, you'll end up having a little binge on something and you'll think, well, damn it, I screwed that up. And then you'll demotivate and then you'll fall off a wagon and you'll repeat the process again. What I'd say is, if you fall off at wagon, don't wait. If you fall off at wagon on a Wednesday, don't say to yourself, well, I'll wait until Monday. Just get back on it as quick as you can. Get back on it as quick as you can. It's the only way it's going to happen. Don't try and change everything. Start with the key, simple stuff like notice what you're eating. Write down what you eat for a meal, and think to yourself, what's the quality of the food that I'm eating? Look at the ingredients. Personally, my meals, I don't need to look at an ingredient list, because everything that I eat now is made. It's a raw. It starts off as a raw ingredient. That way, you know what you're eating. You don't have to worry about the hidden fats. You don't need to worry about the hidden because your intake is the quality of what you put into the meal in itself. So just do a bit of notice and name. If you are gonna have to eat something from a jar or from a packet, look on the back of it. Look at the ingredients list. If we do
try cooking from fresh stuff, but with like having like kale and mate, it's just like, oh, it's just convenient, so it's just like out of a packet sort of thing.
Try and plan your meals. Look at where can you do a bit of meal preparation. Could you cook enough veg do enough meal prep for 2 days at a time. It saves you time then. Try and think smartly about it, and it doesn't have to be about detracting from your time. Sometimes you can end up saving time. Just be aware of what you're eating. For your first couple of weeks, I wouldn't change anything.
No.
Just be aware of what you're eating. Look at your portion size. Look at the size of your plate.
Yeah.
Realistically, we know as nutritionists, we know that in the past 20 to 30 years, plates have more or less doubled in size. They've gone, well, not doubled, they've gone by a quarter. The average plate size used to be 8 inches, it's now 12 inch. But the problem is, if you've got a 12-inch plate, we feel obliged to put 12 inches of food on it. The other thing that we also do is we tend not to be a nation of rude people, to be honest, when it comes to eating. We feel obliged to finish all the food on his plate. So the key is try and again, it's a slow process, but this is what key. If it took you 10, 15, 20 years to get to the condition that you're in now, why would you see it reasonable that you're going to change that in a week of dieting? It's not going to happen, and that's why people fall off the diet regimes. Take it slow and steady. Train yourself to just eat till you're perhaps 80% full. So when you start getting to 80% full, think to yourself, right, now I'm going to stop eating. Put your knife and fork down between each bite of food. Put it on your table.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to chew and taste your food, because it takes time for the hormones in your stomach to catch up with your brain to send out the I'm full now. So slow it down. Let all your bodies catch up, and you'll appreciate food more. You'll taste food in the way that you've never tasted before. By slowing it down and taking your time, concentrating, try and remove any distractions. If you can, I know you've got young ones, so it makes it a bit more difficult. But if you can remove TVs and iPads and stuff like that, remove that kind of stuff, and it just makes it easier to concentrate on what's going on around you. So don't, like I said, in a nutshell, don't try and jump onto these crazy diet plans and doing everything overnight. Just know what you're eating. Basically, if your grandma wouldn't know what it is on a plate or wouldn't recognize it in a packet, it's probably not good for you.
Yeah, it's true.
So just try and keep your food simple. And just, the internet's a world of resource now. There's so many ways on healthy dieting and all the rest. If anyone wants to stick their email address or anything, either message me privately. I'll go onto there. If anyone wants to send me a message or drop their email address into the chat box, what I will do is I will compile some simple recipe menus or meal ideas. Or if you've got any questions that you want to ask, anything comes up, have you got any sort of exercise tips, nutrition tips, please feel free to message me and I'll respond to them as best as I can. Like I said, it's difficult because nobody responds in the same way to exercise or to nutrition. But yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad that a few of you turned out. Again, I'll be this session has been recorded, so if anyone wants access to it afterwards to go back, because I know it's a lot to take in one go. Again, just message me, send me your email address, I'll send you a link for it, and you can watch it back to your heart's content, listen to me droning on for 45 minutes. But it's been great to see a few of you come in tonight, and appreciate you taking the time to come out. And if there's any more questions. Yeah, cool.
Not at the minute, no.
Super. But like I say, anybody wants to reach out to me, my details are there, and I'll quite happily take any questions I can and respond to them best I can. So thanks everybody for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah.
That's
Bye.
great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.